All right, drive home Wednesday night. It says an hour and 10 minutes to get home. Okay. So thanks for being here with me. I appreciate it because I hate commuting. Okay, earlier this week, I did 2 recordings on Monday, and I lost both of them. That's because I started recording, and apparently my camera was in this mode where I don't even know what it's called, but apparently it doesn't allow audio, which is super cool. And I did like a really good vlog entry, and I was super pumped about it. And now I'm going to try to do the same one, and it's going to be bad, I bet, just because. Just because that's how things work. But this is going to be a follow-up to one of the previous vlog entries I did, where I was chatting through something that was submitted to me. And is there good? So this is a scenario that was submitted, and I went through it, and I had said during the conversation, I'm like, hey, like, I don't, there's a lot of assumptions I have to make. And the person that submitted the question to me actually followed up. They're thankful. They said a couple things right away, clicked, which is great. That's awesome to hear. And then they wrote me this super detailed email, which I'm not complaining about. I think it was awesome because the more detail I have, the more that I can actually give my perspective, right? Conversely, like the example vlog entry I did earlier was about some student feedback. Not student feedback, sorry, my brain. Some student questions. They wanted guidance, not feedback. They wanted guidance around some things to do, like best programming language. But like, not trying to say this person is bad at asking questions, but the questions themselves I can't give good answers to without context. So the fact this person wrote in a big email, like, was just super impressive. And because the conversation is about an engineering manager who's trying to help an employee, trying to help a software engineer, I just wanted to share that, like, the fact that this person is going out, trying to seek additional perspective, spending time to go write me like a lengthy email with all of the details to like check for perspective and stuff. I just wanted to say that I think that speaks volume about someone caring to try and help one of their employees. So I think that was really cool. So the context, and I'm going to kind of repeat the original context and then add in the extra details and trying to call those out because I don't want to say they like fundamentally change my perspective on things, but I think that there's some interesting insights to go through. And I apologize. Like I said, I've already recorded one like this without volume, and it was fresh in my mind. Now it's less fresh, but I still want to go through it because I think it's a good conversation. Okay, so the context is, and this part is a little bit new. So this engineering manager was one of the hiring managers for this employee. And when they were hiring this employee, they said, yeah, like, we were impressed by like, how this person interviewed and stuff. Like, they thought be good and everything. Like, they were content with the interview. Sorry, this intersection, I don't want to get stuck in the middle of. So things are good and well. And then like shortly after this employee starts working, and they were hired on at like a senior level, shortly after, with a little bit of time, they're starting to realize, the manager's going like, I don't think that this person is actually like performing at the level we expected. So immediately that's like a bit of an oh crap moment, right? If you're an engineering manager, you might have experienced this before. I have experienced this in my career where it feels like there's misleveling that's happened, which is a very difficult situation. So apparently in this situation, and again, I don't know all the details of the organization, how they operate, but they did end up re-leveling this individual. So this individual went from being like a senior software engineer to a software engineer. So technically their level went down. And the reason why I think that's an important piece of information is because the working relationship. I want to talk about this because, sorry, traffic is pretty crappy right here. This engineer is reporting to this manager, and they're getting the sense like, hey, like, you're my manager. I'm getting feedback from you that things aren't going so great, and I get de-leveled. Like, how do you think the working relationship is gonna feel, right? There's gonna be some tension, there's gonna be some friction, potentially some resentment, right? Like, it's probably not setting things up on the right foot. Now, is it the right thing for this engineer? Like, I would like to trust the engineering manager and, you know, leadership's perspective on being able to like re-level this person. It's very unfortunate, but like, I can understand and would like to trust that they're making a good decision on that, right? If someone is brought in at a higher level than they're operating at, it doesn't do them any good because the expectations on them are going to be higher and they will not be able to meet them, which is why they were de-leveled. So we have this situation going on, okay? So now the other detail, and this was shared originally, was that this engineering manager, the way their organization works, is they can sometimes have like call it like a floating engineering manager style. And I shared in the previous recording when I tried to get this to go, is like, I've seen not quite the same thing, but at Microsoft, like, I have engineers that work in China. And those engineers don't report to me. Like, I am not their manager. And there is a manager in China that they report to. Sorry, switching lanes here. And generally what happens is like, because this happened on my previous team too, it's not like China, the team in China, like just has to do what the US says, but they generally look towards us in Redmond, where we're headquartered, to kind of lead some of that. So if we end up saying from the Redmond side, like, hey, like, no, we had a conversation, we're going to prioritize this, generally they will kind of go along with it. And that doesn't mean that they're like passive about it, they don't talk about it. Absolutely not the case. Like, we're partnered together, they absolutely have a say, but they do generally look towards us for some of that guidance. But that means the employees then, right, in China, they don't report to me directly, but they probably see on the US side, they're like, hey, like, this is where we're getting more direction from. So it's almost like a dotted line report is how we've often phrased it. So again, I'm not their manager, but I end up overseeing, like, from the project side of things, a lot of the work that's being done. So they have their own manager for career growth and everything else that's going on. Now, obviously, this dynamic will change from team to team, but it's an interesting type of setup. So it sounds like in this organization that this individual is talking about, this engineering manager, is a little bit more extreme than that. And so in their scenario with the same engineer that was senior, de-leveled to, kind of losing the senior part of their title, they end up now reporting to, I don't know the exact title that was being used, but it sounds like a non-technical team lead, project manager of some sort. But the key point here is, like, they are non-technical. That's going to come into the mix here. So while this engineer is kind of working with this team lead, for lack of a better word, right? They still have this floating engineering manager that's responsible for trying to help them with their career growth. And this engineering manager, who is the one who emailed in, is saying, like, they're trying to give the feedback, like, these are the things you need to work on. This is what we need to see improve. And the challenging part in all of this is that the feedback that they are getting, this engineer is getting from their team lead, let's call them, is that they are doing good work. And the reason that it looks like they're doing good work to the team lead is because the number of tickets, the number of pieces of work getting done is a high number. It's a bit of a trap, right? Because the feedback that's coming from the engineering manager is like, hey, like the quality of the work, the engineering rigor in this work is not where it needs to be. But the feedback this engineer is getting from their team lead person, let's call them, is like, hey, keep doing awesome, you're doing so good. So which one is it? I apologize because this part of the highway, especially right now, is going to be a real pain in the butt. So I'm going to keep talking, but I might end up just like my mouth might stop because I see an opening or something. There's 2 lanes of traffic to my right that are trying to merge into one, and that's the lane I need to get into. So it's a complete nightmare, man. I hate this drive. Okay, now it doesn't stop there. Things get more interesting. While this engineer is sort of like dealing with this floating engineering manager and has a team lead kind of person, again, I don't know the exact titles and stuff. While that's happening, some organizational changes happen, and basically, automatically, this engineer gets their senior title back. Okay, so that's a compounded little bit of confusion. I gotta see if I can get in front of this truck. It's probably not gonna happen. Get your signal on, buddy. Can I sneak in? Can you see me? Nice. Okay, we're clear. So that's happened. All the while, this floating engineering manager is trying to help them grow in their career. The feedback, because I had said to in the video that actually had audio, originally I said one piece of guidance is like, I think this engineering manager needs to like chat more with the call them team lead position. And he said there have been conversations, but essentially what's happening is the team lead is literally saying, well, I'm not technical. So all the things that you're calling out, like you need to address that with the engineer because like those are things I don't understand. Or at least I can't make claims about. Like that's for you to do. So I think that's most of the scenario. I realize that took a little bit of time, but it's a pretty complex scenario. It's a little bit messy. Okay, where I want to start is where I just left off, and that is kind of to reemphasize the point. I think there needs to be better alignment between the engineering manager and this team lead type of person. And that I'm not saying that's any fault of the engineering manager by any means. I think that could even be argued that like the way the organization is set up might not lend itself well to to be like a positive experience there. So if you have people in a position where they're not technical and they're responsible for technical things, like that seems like not a good approach to me. I think that's like a recipe for having some challenges, which we're seeing in this example. I also want to say that I don't think it's impossible for this floating engineering manager style I don't think it's impossible to work, but I think that it creates challenges, right? Like, and again, we're seeing them. You end up having someone who feels like they report to 2 people. Now, that's something that you might have experienced if you're an engineer, or if you're an engineering manager, you might have seen something like this. But sometimes, even within a team, right? I have literally seen many times where we have an engineering manager who's overseeing a team, and there's a product owner, and basically the product owner is non-technical or not technical enough. They get pushed around by the engineers, right? So like, hey, look, engineers are getting stuff done. And then the engineering manager's like, wait, like, there's a misalignment between what's going on here. So I genuinely think that there needs to be some alignment to improve that. Now, I don't think this engineering manager is necessarily going to change like the organization and how they're structured. So I'm not I'm not trying to say that. But given that's probably not going to happen, I think the partnership between these two individuals needs to improve. Now, I think that's honestly just about level setting expectations. So if this person who is the team lead type of person, again, don't know the role, if they're saying, hey, I'm not technical, I don't know how to address those types of things, that doesn't mean that we just forget about it, right? Okay, well, how do we make sure that we can get on the same page for that, right? That way it's not like the engineering manager is just the bad guy, right? And then the team lead person is the good person. Like, hey, you're doing good all the time. There needs to be level set expectations. And that might not mean that the team lead person can do the most effective job of conveying all the details of that to the engineer, but they need to be able to recognize it. Or else you get this really weird dichotomy where one is, it's a good cop, bad cop kind of situation. We don't want that. So needs to be better alignment. How that happens, I think that's some open, honest conversations. You got to build that relationship, not necessarily with the engineer, right? You got to build that across these two roles. So that's part number one. Part number two, speaking of alignment, and I talked about this in the other video and I want to repeat it, is some type of rubric. And it sounds like this engineering manager was saying they are part of a committee that is going to be establishing this, and I think that this is excellent. I don't think that you have to have this kind of thing, but I think that it is tremendously beneficial to have some type of rubric or guidelines on expectations that the organization says that engineers should have at different roles or different levels in their role. And the reason I think that's important is because without it, everything is completely subjective. How do you balance between engineering managers and their reports and how they're leveling people? Can it be done? Yes. Is either one of these examples going to take a lot of conversations and level setting expectations even across managers? Yes. But when you have something that is written, that has been agreed upon in terms of expectations that people can look at and have conversations about, refer to, suddenly it becomes a lot easier to call out like, hey, look, we say at this level for this role, this is an expectation. Is this person doing that? Right? Because otherwise you have someone saying, I expect this person at this level for this role should do that. And then you might have someone else go, oh, I didn't expect that. Like, I actually think this other thing's more important. So, or, I expect a junior person can do that. And someone say, oh, I might expect a principal or staff is doing that. So having tools like this to level set is so important across an org to be on the same page for managers. But that's not where it stops. So I'm very happy that this engineering manager said that they're working on this, like they're part of that team. That's not where it stops, though, because the other way that you use this is with the individual. It means there are way fewer surprises. So into the next point, documentation. I brought this up before. I think the engineering manager who wrote in said, it's an opportunity to be doing more of that. So that's great. Having some written record of like, hey, we had a conversation about this. I brought up the expectations. You agreed to them. Like, being able to reference that, I think, is very powerful. You can make this more powerful when you have the rubric that says, like, this isn't just my opinion. I'm not just giving you my opinion and whatever. It's like literally an organization expectation. So into the next point then. So I think, for that point was essentially using documentation and the rubric to be able to do the level setting. I can see the red and blue lights on this highway already. So says I have another 50 minutes to get home. You guys are in for a wild ride. It's going to be a long one. So the next part to this, though, I'm talking about rubrics, documentation. I got too excited with the police car. When I say excited, I mean very, very upset because I know how long I'm going to be here. So we use the rubric. I was talking about this scenario where it feels like this person probably has two managers, right? That's like what it feels like. Going back to one of the first things I said when I said this person was de-leveled, and it probably created a bit of friction in the working relationship with the manager and this engineer. Put yourself in this person's shoes for a second, okay? Like the engineer's shoes. They have someone telling them, someone that your relationship's been a little bit soured, right? Like, oh, like you're the one who is being really critical and I lost my senior title. Like, okay. And oh, every time we talk, it feels like I'm being criticized about something. Okay. And then you have someone else that kind of feels like they're in charge of, your destiny, the work you're doing. And they're going, great job. You're doing so much work. Great job. Keep doing more work. Like, it's so awesome that you can do all this work. Like, what do you think this engineer is going to do, right? They're going to say, that feels good. Like, if I do what I'm doing, I'm getting this positive reinforcement. So the problem is obviously that, like, there's a misalignment, right? A lot of stuff comes down to, like, misalignment. So I think if this engineering manager is able to leverage the rubric, document the conversations, level set on the expectations, document them, right? Then they can say, like, look, this is the stuff that's required for being promoted to this other level. Like, this is the expectation. It's literally the organizational pieces. It's not just my opinion, because this person, this engineer, is probably starting to feel like, hey man, like, what does your opinion actually matter? I just, like, waited it out a little bit. I got my senior title back. You keep criticizing me about these things, but I keep getting this positive feedback elsewhere. Like, it's going to start to make it feel like they're discrediting the engineering manager. Obviously, I don't know the exact details here, but that's how I'm kind of thinking through this being a challenge. So having the rubric and saying, it's not just my opinion, can be a huge help. Now, they can also use that rubric and go to the team lead person and say, by the way, again, it's not just my opinion. These are the things that this person needs to focus on to help grow in their career. So, just so you know, I'm working with this person on these things. Like, heads up, right? We're getting on the same page. This is what we're focused on. And, having that person understand that these are expectations for engineers at that level. All of that is level set expectations with documentation, and it starts to remove this, like, opinion bias. So hopefully that makes sense. I realize there's a lot more nuance to this than I'm saying. So I don't intend to make it, like, sound trivialized. That's not my goal. But I am intending to call out that I think a lot of this is related to, like, just not being on the same page expectation-wise. Now, I'm going to do the thing again where I probably stop talking because I got to get over so many lanes of traffic. I hate it here. Two more. Let me in. Yeah. Let me in. One more. And then we can sit in the fast lane and park. Almost there. Cool, we did it. We're in the fast lane, folks, going 15 miles an hour, so that's, like, super fast. Okay, what else on this? I want to talk more about, like, interpersonal stuff, because I think I was addressing a lot of, like, logistical things. And it's good. Like, this engineering manager wrote in and said a bunch of this stuff they're trying to do more of, which is great. At least from my perspective, right? Like, who am I to say what's right and wrong? I'm just giving you my perspective. So I want to talk more about the relationship between the engineering manager and the software engineer. And I've already kind of hinted at it a whole bunch, but like, this is probably a pretty soured relationship, unfortunately. I don't want to, like, no fault necessarily of the engineering manager, right? They're doing what they think is right to de-level the person so this person is able to operate at a level they can be successful. That was the goal, right? It's not the goal to say like, hey, I hate this person. I hope they don't succeed in their career. That's why I started off this vlog entry by saying, at least, okay, maybe you can't say that maybe I can't claim that I know. I have a very good feeling this engineering manager actually cares about this employee, or else they wouldn't have bothered to do this. It would have been way less work to not say anything to me, and it would have been way less work to not follow up and write like a 2,000 word email. Right? They put in the effort because they're trying to come up with something that's going to improve what's going on. So I genuinely think that this person cares a lot. And I think that's really important. So you have a situation where the relationship has been soured between the manager and the employee. This employee is getting positive feedback from a different source, and it probably, for the most part, feels like this engineer is only getting criticism. Like, anytime I talk to you, it's bad news, right? Like, you always have something that I need to improve on. So it's a difficult spot to be in. So when I was thinking about this originally, and I was talking through it, and I shouldn't say originally, in the video that failed, like with no sound, I was trying to think about just like different ways to try and improve this working relationship. And one thing that came to mind, it might sound obvious, is like, and maybe this engineering manager is doing this, which is great, but I think if a lot of your focus in conversations is like, hey, these are the things that I'm hoping you can improve on, and like calling this stuff out, like, yes, that needs to happen. Don't get me wrong. Like, it needs to happen. That's how you help demonstrate to this person we're trying to track your progression. But I think it's important that this engineering manager is calling out the wins, right? So making sure that you can spend some time acknowledging when this person has done good stuff. Make it known to them that you're paying attention to that stuff too. Or else it's that kind of situation. Every time I talk to you, it's bad news. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to be around you. It's always bad. So how can you find opportunities to make this good? If that sounds too fluffy to you, then I would say that maybe spend more time with people and you'll realize that a little bit of that can go a really long way. I would say most people like being recognized in different ways, like, and it can be very different from individual to individual. But I don't have stats on it, but I would wager most individuals are just like under-recognized in the work they do. So, and you can, like, if you're listening to this and you're not a manager, try this out. And I'm not kidding you, try this out. If you're working remotely, even easier, right? Think about someone on your team. Any person on your team. Think about some work they did that they completed and they did it successfully. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but literally just pick someone on your team that finished up some work and say, like, hey, thanks for doing that. You did a good job on that. Like, hey, your code review was like, it was, good size pull request. I could understand things, like, just, hey, good job for doing that. Thanks. I appreciate that you were considerate. Good job rolling that feature out. Like, it was good to see that you checked all these things. Hey, that design doc you put together, like, that was really good. Thanks for doing that. Try it. Try it, because you'll literally transform someone's day. And I know it sounds silly, but I would like bet money on it for most of the time. It's going to transform someone's day, because people don't get feedback like that regularly. So that's why I'm recommending in this case, if this engineering manager is not taking that opportunity, do it more. Do that. Something else that is really kind of just back to basics is like, when you have this kind of crappy working relationship, and you need to like just get some like human element back in, like taking some of the one-on-one time to just like, I know some people don't like the idea of like small talk and stuff, but like spend some time just like learning about this person, like learn from them, right? Ask them how their weekend was. Ask like if they might not be willing to go into detail about stuff, but like put in some effort to literally listen to what they have to say and just learn about them if they're willing to share with you. So it sounds like that's completely not work related, and probably the stuff you're going to talk about is not work related. But I think it's very helpful if people are willing to do that, because that way you're getting to spend some time with the person. Because odds are, based on the circumstances, it's not a good working relationship. How do you make that better? Like, value the person, value what they have to say, listen to them. Take some time to understand them, right? Because if every time you go to talk to them, it's like, hey, we talked about this thing, right? Like, are you doing a better job now? That's going to be a crappy conversation every time. And one of the last things that I can recall that I thought of from before was kind of on this idea of like positive feedback loops. This person behind me doesn't have lights on. Oh, you absolute dummy. You absolute dummy. For those of you watching this video, you can probably see how dark it is outside. There's a human being in a motorized vehicle behind me that said, "We don't need lights today." My God. Okay. So the last thing that I thought of to include for this was essentially, if we have these scenarios where you're constantly giving this feedback that's like, hey, do better. What if, and this is a little bit like, might sound risky, but like, are there opportunities where you could get this person to help contribute to helping define some processes or helping put their input into something? Because if some of the engineering rigor is not where it needs to be, I can't remember the exact details, but maybe it's like not testing things properly or effectively, or not rolling changes back or whatever. Like, I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity on your team to help define some of these processes, policies, whatever you want to call them, general guidance, like if you don't want to talk about like hard rules or anything. Like, what if there was an opportunity to have this person be included in putting that together? Now, it sounds risky because you're like, I don't trust them to do that, but hear me out. What if they could participate in that with other folks, right? You get a couple people together to come up, like a random example, right? Like, we have on-call shifts at Microsoft, at least in the teams that I've been on. And what if for your service you needed better on-call guidance? Like, that was something that wasn't really formulated. Like, what if this person could participate with a few other people and try to put that together? So you essentially take this person who you're like, oh, I don't really trust the work they're doing, and you put them in a position where they can actually think about some of these requirements. So say this person had some risky changes, right? And you're like, okay, like if I have them participate on the on-call guidance where there might be some risky changes, right? Like you're trying to revert stuff that's broken, or you're trying to make sure you can roll out fixes. it would probably be a very good learning experience for them to be part of that. They can feel like they're having a responsibility. They can learn from their peers about these important things. They can share their perspective as well. So they can start to have conversations with other people and hear how other people are thinking through this stuff. So, obviously, this is a situational thing. I can't like guarantee that will work, but that's something that you could consider that might help them feel more engaged and actually care about the stuff that you care about. I hope that makes sense. You probably have to watch it pretty close if you're nervous about that kind of stuff, like them taking that responsibility on. But if you have them paired up with other people, I think it's a potential for something good, right? And then they have that, right? They have some momentum where they're like, hey, I got to participate on this. They can see that like this is the expectation of the engineering team is like this like something that they help to find. I think there's some cool stuff that can come out of that. So it might be an opportunity to try. So the meta point there is, instead of like constantly removing responsibilities from someone until they feel like they're just like, you work in this box, do what I say, and you're going to get criticized no matter what. Obviously, I'm exaggerating a little bit, maybe a lot of it, but the meta point here is like, give them some specific responsibility, some ownership, and try to see if they have some guidance around that, if they can be successful. So that's a thought. But anyway, I think that's going to wrap up my thoughts for this. I still got about 4 hours left to get home, apparently. So, I want to say thanks for the person that wrote in on this topic. I hope that, like, some of the stuff that I said is definitely a repeat, but I hope that some of the extra context is like helpful to think through. And yeah, I would say for folks, if you're listening to this, I said it in one of the earlier videos today. I don't know who watches what, but if you have stuff that you want me to talk through, so far I'm kind of just responding to stuff that's in DMs or in comments, whatever you're comfortable with. But I do have a topmate.io page, and if this channel gets busier and busier and there's more and more topics, I might start prioritizing stuff off of that. Basically, it would be a few bucks to go submit something that you want me to talk about, and I will donate every single dollar. If I understand correctly, if I donate through Microsoft matches every dollar I put in. So I think that would be super cool. I would feel like if this channel started doing better and better and more people wanted to take advantage of that, that would feel so cool to be able to say like, hey, I can do this. We can have a conversation. Everyone can try to, learn together. And then I can go donate it to like, I don't know, like, helping people get into tech and stuff. I think that would be super cool. So, but for now, you can still send me DMs and stuff right in the comments. I'm just giving you an idea where I'd love to see this go to. It might sound kind of funny, but let me explain. The idea behind putting a couple of dollars on it is that it helps in terms of, instead of just people blasting random things, which isn't happening right now, so that's why it's not like an urgent thing. Instead of people blasting random things and being like, hey, talk about this, talk about that, like people will put a little bit of effort into like, hey, I would like you to talk about this thing, and maybe I can set it up where I can be like, when you're submitting something, like, give me more detail, because when it's super generic, unless you want generic answers, right? If you give me specifics, I can try. That's that. This does say 15 minutes left, so not so bad. So I will probably blab at you a little bit more about not that previous topic. So I talked about brand ghost this morning. I'm going to talk about brand ghost a little more. So where's a good spot to start? we got our. I want to talk about like the flow of the product, and I want to talk about like testing, fixes, and stuff. I think one thing that we're doing really well is when there's issues, we're responding very fast. I think we continue to demonstrate that. So we respond to issues extremely fast. We respond to building out feature sets very fast. So I'm very excited about that. Like, that feels good. I feel like if I'm ever leading teams of people, if I run a company, if we ever reach a point where it feels like we can't do the right thing, like with agility, then that's going to feel very bad. Like, it's not the world I want to live in if I have the choice. So I'm just very thankful for it. I think I talked about this before, but I think we're reaching a point, like our back end is getting more and more tests on it because the data is more and more critical that we have that right. Especially like data migration scenarios, we can make sure we have stuff covered. We can feel like we can go with a change, and users that have legacy data versus new data will be supported. So like, that's all good. Or it's improving at least by having some tests in the back end. That's great stuff. I think our front end is lacking for tests, and I think for me that's something I want to see more of. And the reason I say that is, like, it's no one's fault, but I think we've hit a few too many like simple bugs. Simple in terms of like, oh, the fix is like, it's, it ends up being very small, but not simple or not like, they're pretty impactful. Like having an entire page of the website just be completely unusable because of a simple bug. Like, that's not simple for the end user though, right? Like, that's quite impactful. Unless you don't need anything on that page, and then it's not impacting you at all. But that's something that I feel like, hey, we could easily avoid that, or I would like to think we could easily avoid it. So let's do it. And I feel like there's been a couple too many times where, like, and I don't say this to like insult anyone, because it was the same on the back end. It starts to feel like embarrassment, because we know we're better than like having silly issues. So like, why do we? But that's exactly like I was having personally, and I take full responsibility for them because I do all of the back end coding. I would break stuff in our SQL queries. Like, I would literally miss a comma or have an extra comma where I shouldn't. And then like I would break authentication, and I'm like, my God, like it's so embarrassing because it's such a small thing that had such a big impact. And I think our front end's kind of hitting that now. So like, I really want to see that improve. Because when we go to land more features, it keeps happening where I'm like, I don't want to be nervous when we land new features. In the beginning, it wasn't like that at all. But the further along we go, the more and more nervous I'm getting. So I think that's a really good sign. We need more tests. Because whatever's being covered is not building that confidence, at least for me. So I'd like to see that. I talked this morning about this funny situation where we had a bunch of queries firing off. Like, another situation where like I don't have that covered in the back end. And I think in Azure, we want to get some better alerts set up for when our database is experiencing some funky stuff like that. Just like stuff that we have visibility. Buddy, come on, if you're going to switch lanes, you have to be going faster than me if you're going to go in front of me. But that's that. I think that's from like a a logistics kind of thing. Like those are some things. Man, your signal's still on. No? Okay. Beyond that, though, I think I want to talk about some of the flow. So we landed posting. So we have topic streams, which are the recurring posts, and so the functionality already exists for just posting, but we didn't have a user interface for it. So we're getting on a call tonight to discuss like what the future of posting looks like for us, because right now there are lots of products that offer posting. There are, as far as I know, there are 0 products aside from Brand Ghost that offer recurring posts built up from a content archive that you can leave on autopilot. My person had their high beams on, my God. So I don't think, like, and I should be clear, our goal is not to like win on cross-platform posting. It's not our goal to win on that. Why isn't it? Because companies like Buffer have been doing it for over a decade. Could we win on that? I think so. I think if we, put our minds to it, we can do it. I just don't think that's how we want to invest all of our effort. And I don't think it's worth, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? Like, could we? Sure. I think that anyone at any point can come along and, given agility, given how they're listening to customers and stuff, like, you can win out and take out big incumbents that have been there for a long time. So it's all possible. I just don't think it's a good focus for us. So we're going to be discussing what the future of posting on our platform looks like. And one of I think I might have shared this before, but like the philosophy that we're trying to adopt is like, we know that like our core, I shouldn't say we know, what we've set as our core audience is content creators, right? So if you're a content creator that is, especially if you're at the point where you're starting to monetize your audience, then you can afford to have a social media tool like Brand Ghost, right? And if you're not monetizing your audience and you're paying for a tool to do it, it starts to feel kind of weird. Like, why am I just paying money to post stuff? Now, for me, I did this. Like, for Dev Leader, I was paying money to get my time back so that I could post more. And then continuing to build Brand Ghost, so spending even more time so that I can be more effective at posting. So I see it as an investment. And I was doing that before I was having any money from content creation. So I just don't think that all creators are there, and I don't think we can expect that's the case. So like, if we have this core audience that we envision to be content creators that are at least starting to monetize their audience, what are the other groups? And how do people start off before they're content creators at that level? So what does that look like? So we're going to be talking about that tonight. So kind of like a strategy conversation, and then that should help drive the next things that we're going to be focused on, because we just landed a bunch of stuff, and I think that'll just be good to get some to refocus. I know for sure TikTok is top of the priority list to land. I want to fast follow that with YouTube, and then we have a pretty good video story there. Because without TikTok, it's like, without TikTok and YouTube, it's kind of crappy. Like, we can post videos on any other platform, but I think if you're a video creator, you're probably trying to post stuff to TikTok and to YouTube Shorts. So it would feel way better to have that stuff in place. But otherwise, does our onboarding have to change? Do we have features outside of just social media platforms to add, like, that we need to go emphasize? So that kind of stuff I'm thinking about. I feel like I'm trying to get some ideas together that aren't necessarily a, how do I put it? They're not necessarily like a priority to have in the product, but I think that they're interesting things that help us from like a marketing perspective. And that's a difficult thing to balance too, because we only have so much time to focus on the stuff we're building. We made it through. So yeah, we got to keep building features, but like if we're not investing time and energy into attracting users, they don't just magically show up. Be nice, but you don't just post the sign up and all of a sudden people show up. You have to put the signs in the right spot, and more often than not, it's on a sign. You're tapping on people's shoulders, say, hey, have you seen this? You want to try it? So I want to come up with creative ways to help with that, but also acknowledge, like, I don't want to fall into the meal coach trap, which is the previous SaaS I tried to build. I don't want to keep avoiding outreach, because I did that with meal coach. So I have been doing outreach. I got to keep doing it. And that way we're not getting stale on it. So that'll be tonight. Can't see anything when it's raining and I back into my driveway. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I gotta film some YouTube videos tonight, I think. Falling behind on that. So that's that, folks. I hope the first part was helpful, and thanks for staying to the end, and I'll see you next time. Take care.